Welcome back to Footy Furnace. Let's get to Adelaide Oval this afternoon, Hurdy, where the Crows were far too good for North Melbourne. The margin was 36 points. Adelaide did everything they needed to do, and it means they're 3-0, which is exciting for anyone over in South Australia, especially ahead of gather round.
Absolutely. I think Adelaide couldn't have done anything more with Nick's setting up the pre-season. 3-0 is fantastic. I think North can be pretty happy too with the way they've played. Obviously, the Adelaide Crows have won so many games, but Ben Keys kicks the opening goal for Adelaide to set them going, and you can tell from the way they played, they just ran, they chased Dan Curtin, chasing Bailey Scott here and winning the ball back. Caleb Daniel for the Kangaroos would like his time again, I think, when he's having his kicks here. But from my mind, North came back, I think, late in that first quarter to really challenge the Crows. But the Crows had all the answers, and the Adelaide crowd really got into it. Silenced them a little bit, but the Adelaide crowd got into it. Nick Larkey puts another one through the big sticks, and Luke Parker, 300 games, pushes through the tackle and finds Jack Darling alone for a set-up in the goal. For me, Jimmy, Adelaide look like the real deal. We won't really know for a few weeks.
What do you mean by the real deal?
Well, I think they're definitely finals bound.
Yep.
But against the best sides, have they got what it takes?
So their forward firepower just actually looks, maybe it's the same jumper, but it looks like 2017. They score at will at the moment.
Yeah, they've certainly got the bigs up front. Of course, Tex Walker, he doesn't have to be the number one P in the pod because that man there, Phil Thorpe, he's got an elite talent.
Yep.
Contested marking, and then Fogarty is a good finisher, contested mark. Rochelle got hurt, but for me it's that midfield mix. They've been able to add some speed, and Soligo, Rankin through the midfield. Actually, Frank's what Crouch does really well. And last year they were actually pretty decent behind the ball. They just couldn't turn those turnovers into scores or that transition game, but they're doing that at the moment. They
are, and people are talking about those three talls in Phil Thorpe, Walker and Fogarty, whether they'd all be able to play together. But today, Walker 4, Phil Thorpe 3 and Fogarty 2. They certainly played well. When it hits the ground against the better sides, are they going to be able to keep it in there? But at the moment, you have to say those three talls are really working for them and very, very scary for opposition. They smashed the Bombers last week, really worked well down forward this week, and against the Suns next week, it's going to be a really good battle.
And the numbers demonstrate a picture, not only are they scoring big, but they're entertaining to watch as well.
Absolutely.
Tells us that they can turn a game in half a quarter.
They're just their power forwards. They're back to the real power forwards. They keep their man out. They protect their space and away they go. And those numbers are pretty scary, really.
Yeah, lots of green means good, obviously. And the Crows, they're playing some good footy, but they've got some stern tests still to come. I still think there's some acid tests for the Crows that will really determine how they're going to go this year. The Suns game on Saturday looms large all of a sudden.
That's the big one for me. I mean, both sides, it's a big test for both sides. That I think for the Suns midfield coming up against Adelaide, and then can the Suns backs contain that forward line?
And it's interesting to see because Collins is a gun defender, but missing Charlie Ballard now. I would love to have had Charlie Ballard going into that Crows game.
And then they've got Geelong, GWS and Freo after that. So stern test to come, but they're doing everything they possibly can, the Adelaide Crows. The Roos, what did you make of North Melbourne?
Yeah, I think they're still boxed on. When you're watching the last quarter, you get good, indication of where a team's mindset was. And they were still trying to run and create through the game. And they were still trying to defend. And, of course, they got beaten by a better side on their home deck who's in red-hot form. But for me, for North Melbourne, how we measure North Melbourne, people say, should they have 10 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins? I'm going to look at North Melbourne based on percentage. And I'm using Chris Fagan's lines. When he first got there, he actually mentioned percentage. Let's look at it because it's a great indicator of both sides of the footy. So if we go back last year, 18 times they gave up over 100 points and they only scored over 100 points once. Like, they're just completely out of whack. And I went to Brisbane first year under Fagan, 5 wins percentage of 74. North Melbourne last year with 3 wins at 65. The second year under Fagan where they made really good improvements, everyone said Brisbane's going actually all right, but they only had 5 wins. Their percentage went to 87. So I'd love to see the Roos finish the year. Now, hopefully they got 6 or 7 wins, but I'd love that percentage to be 85 to 90 because that's a good reflection of you got the balance in the game right. You're still able to attack but defend. No more of these big blowout games.
And you could tell in the game today that every time Adelaide started to stretch it, it came back. And that's what you're talking about. They would get the game back, didn't get too far away from them. And I think they're on the same page as their coach, and their young players are starting to come through. And you're right, the percentage is a bigger telltale than people think.
Finn O'Sullivan's the one I love watching today for North Melbourne. He's going to be an absolute gun if he's not already. Josh Rochelli's also a gun, and this was an incident that actually reminded all of us of Christian Petrarca's rib injury on King's birthday last year. This is the better angle there. You see Tristan Sherry's right knee going to his ribs. The news from the Crows, I've spoken to them about half an hour ago, is it's suspected broken ribs. We'll know for sure in the next 24 hours. Matthew Nix said he won't play next week, and beyond then it's TBA. But he didn't go back on the field. But as of last check, he's not in hospital either. So hopefully he's okay.
Big difference is he didn't go back on the field. I think the Crows learnt something from Melbourne last year.
He did well to walk off the field.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that would seriously hurt. So hopefully Josh Rochelli is okay in the mid to long term. Let's move across to Perth this evening, where the Fremantle Dockers registered their first win of the season. 38 points was the margin. Caleb Sarong, 35 disposals, his fourth best on ground medal in this game, which is just a phenomenal achievement given he's probably still got a few more to play. How did it play out, Jimmy?
Yeah, it probably played out the way we expected. You know, it was a bit tough and tight and fiery as it is when the Eagles play Freo. The crowd certainly showed out. So it was a great crowd at a great stadium over there. And you mentioned Caleb Sarong. He had 35 touches. He was dynamic. And a man who would have gone close to that as well would have been Brayshaw, who had 29 with 700 metres gained. That's what we've been crying out for the Freo midfielder and midfield. Sarong had 500 metres gained. Liam Ryan was back to a bit of his dynamic best. He was lively on his toes, intercepting, kicked that freakish goal. But Freo's cohesion, as I was talking about, that forward handball. And I love that young fella there, of course, Isaiah Dudley on debut, kicked 2 goals, gave him a real spark. That was a beauty on the outside of the foot.
Great story, that one as well for him.
Yeah, he came off the SSP list. They've liked him in their academies and stuff like that for quite some time as well. A goal from a centre bounce for the Eagles, which is really good against that Freo midfield. And Liam Ryan, as I mentioned before, look at this, dancing feet as well. And Bolton as well. That was the big prize recruit for the Dockers. He was able to run down and tackle as well. So dynamic forward line. Tracy kicked 3, the big kahuna, he kicked 2, I think, in the second quarter. Amos kicked 4 in an intriguing battle there with McGovern. And for the Eagles, Archer Reid, the other Reid that they've got on their list, 2 goals, which is a good result. And Marek, the mid-season pick last year, 28 touches and 6 intercepts. But there was a class difference, as we expected, and Freo did what they should. And
they played very well, Freo, but I was a bit impressed by West Coast after three-quarter time, the way they hung on. It looked like halfway through the third quarter they got blown away. Losing Jeremy McGovern during the game doesn't look good to me, an injury.
This is the injury, so it's a groin, and you can just see he felt it. He does have a history of soft tissue. And the other one is Alex Pearce, who hyperextends his knee. But McGovern out's a huge loss for West Coast, and that's the Pearce incident then.
Sorry, you go. They hung in. I thought it was really good to hear because they really looked like they were getting blown away.
Yeah, and I was going to highlight, I love a bit of theatre in the game, as you guys like my Sunday. But the Eagles fans turning out for Harley Reid at the 9-minute mark of the first quarter. Free the bird. Of course, 9 representing Harley Reid, of course. First quarter, the $1,000 fine. There was birds everywhere.
The power of social media, hey?
Yes, it was a bit of fun.
A bit of fun, not too bad. You probably want to do it every week. But I do enjoy that as well. And Harley Reid's spec he took there was fantastic as well. Good to talk about Harley Reid in a positive light tonight.
Absolutely.
Even though he had a loss, he certainly had some good moments.